The stars above the station did not shine the way humans expected them to. They did not blink or sparkle. They simply existed, cold and steady, like silent watchers. From the wide glass corridor of the Gallon Exchange Station, Elias Morgan stood still and observed them. He had been here for 6 months, yet the feeling never left him. Space always felt larger than thought itself. Elias was an envoy, not a soldier, not a scientist, and not a hero. At least, that was what he believed. He wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, marked only with a small blue circle over his chest. The circle meant Earth. It was modest, almost shy, compared to the glowing symbols and floating displays worn by other species on the station. The Gallon Exchange Station was neutral ground, a place where dozens of intelligent species met to trade knowledge, culture, and agreements. It floated in open space far from any home system. For most species, the station was a place of power and politics. For humans, it was still a test. Humanity was new to the wider galaxy. Only 30 years had passed since Earth sent its first faster-than-light probe. Only 12 years since humans made first contact, and only 5 years since they were allowed a seat. Just one seat on the Exchange Council. Many species still doubted them. Elias felt that doubt every day. As he walked down the corridor, beings of different shapes and sizes moved around him. Some floated, some walked on many legs. Some glided like liquid shadows. A tall Varelian passed him, its crystal skin glowing softly with internal light. 2 small Keth children followed behind their parent, speaking in rapid musical clicks. None of them paid Elias much attention. That was normal. Humans were considered unremarkable by most of the galaxy. Physically weak, short-lived, lacking natural defenses. No claws, no armor, no venom. Even their technology, while clever, was not considered impressive. Faster species existed. Smarter species existed. Older species existed. Yet humans were here. Elias reached the council observation chamber and stopped at the entrance. Inside, the chamber curved like a bowl, with layered seating descending toward a central platform. The council meeting had not started yet, but representatives were already arriving. At the center platform stood a large hollow projection, currently dark. When active, it could display entire star systems in detail. Elias took a seat at the human position. It was placed near the outer ring, far from the central seats reserved for founding species. He did not mind. Humans had learned patience early in their history. As he waited, his mind returned to the message he had received that morning. It was short. Too short. Unusual stellar behavior detected near human frontier zone.
Council discussion expected. Be prepared.
That was all. Elias did not like vague messages. In diplomacy, unclear information often meant danger. Around him, the chamber slowly filled. The massive Thorax delegate arrived, its armored body folding carefully into a reinforced seat. The Thorax were known for their strength and direct speech. Across from Elias, the Lumiere representative floated into place, their form glowing gently like a cloud of light. They were ancient and calm, often silent during debates. When the final chime sounded, the chamber doors sealed shut. A hollow projection flickered to life. A star system appeared in the center of the room. Elias recognized it immediately. His breath slowed. It was close to human space. A speaker node rose from the platform. The voice that came from it was smooth and neutral, translated instantly into every language.
The council is now in session. Topic: Anomaly detected in the Helios Drift region.
A murmur spread through the chamber. The Helios Drift sat at the edge of mapped space, dangerously close to Earth's expanding colonies. The projection zoomed in. A star pulsed slowly, its light bending in strange ways. "This star," the voice continued, "has begun exhibiting controlled energy fluctuations. Patterns indicate artificial manipulation." Artificial. That word carried weight. Elias felt every eye, lens, and sensory organ turned slightly toward the human section. The Thalric's delegate spoke first, its voice deep and sharp.
Is this a weapon? The Loomer followed, their voice calm but heavy. Or
A signal! Another delegate! Thin and insect-like! Clicked loudly! Or a mistake!
Young species often make dangerous mistakes.
Elias kept his expression neutral. Humans were often accused of reckless curiosity.
The projection changed, showing energy readings. Lines rose and fell in repeating patterns.
Analysis suggests intentional design, the council voice said. However, origin remains unknown. A pause followed. Then came the sentence Elias had expected, but hoped not to hear. The anomaly is within 12 light years of human-controlled territory. The chamber erupted in sound. Not chaos, but intense discussion. Voices overlapped, some sharp, some controlled. The implication was clear. If something went wrong, humans would be blamed first. Elias stood slowly. Human custom allowed representatives to speak when recognized. But sometimes, standing early made a statement. The council voice acknowledged him. Earth Envoy, you may speak. Elias inhaled once before speaking. Humanity did not create this anomaly, he said simply. His voice was steady. We have no technology capable of controlling stellar output at that scale. Thalrek shifted.
Then why is it near your space? Elias did not react emotionally.
Because we explore, we expand, we observe. That does not mean we cause. A low sound came from the insect-like delegate. Your species has a pattern of unintended consequences. Elias nodded. That is true. We learn by trying, and when we make mistakes, we fix them. Some delegates reacted with interest, others with doubt. The Lumiere spoke again. What does Earth propose? That was the key question. Elias had prepared for this. We propose investigation, he said. Joint investigation. Humans will provide ships, crews, and data, not because we are responsible, but because we are closest.
The chamber grew quiet.
The Thalrex considered. You volunteer resources quickly. Yes, Elias replied. Because if this anomaly is dangerous, delay benefits no one. The projection shifted again, showing simulations. Some outcomes were stable, others were not. One scenario showed energy collapse spreading outward. Elias felt a cold tightness in his chest. If that happened, Earth's outer colonies would be gone, not destroyed violently, but erased by physics itself. The council voice spoke. Risk assessment indicates a 37% chance of cascading failure within 5 standard cycles. That was not long. The insect-like delegate clicked sharply. And if humans are involved, intentionally or not? Elias met the many-faceted gaze without hesitation. Then we will face the consequences. Publicly. Fully.
That was not a common offer! The Lumiere's light brightened slightly.
Humans continue to surprise us. Elias allowed himself a small breath. The council deliberated. Minutes passed. To Elias, it felt like hours. Finally, the voice returned. Decision reached. A joint task group will be formed. Human envoy Elias Morgan will act as primary coordinator. Elias felt the weight settle instantly. Coordinator meant responsibility. Blame if things failed, he accepted with a slight bow. As the session ended and delegates began to leave, Elias remained seated for a moment, staring at the star still glowing in the projection. Something about its pattern bothered him. It was not random, not just controlled. It felt careful, as if whoever made it understood restraint. Later, in the quiet of his assigned quarters, Elias reviewed incoming data. Streams of numbers flowed across his screen. His assistant AI highlighted irregularities. Pattern consistency exceeds known alien standards, the AI noted. Elias frowned. Meaning? Meaning the controlling intelligence values balance over efficiency. Elias leaned back slowly. That sounded uncomfortably familiar. Outside the viewport, the stars remained silent. But for the first time since humanity joined the galactic community, Elias felt something shift. Not fear, expectation. Whatever waited in the Helios drift, it was about to test humanity in a way no war ever had. And this time, everyone would be watching. The human exploration ship Aster Way moved quietly through open space. Its engines did not roar or flash. They hummed softly, like something alive but calm. Inside, the ship felt almost peaceful, though everyone on board knew the mission was anything but simple. Elias Morgan stood near the main viewing window, hands resting behind his back. Stars stretched endlessly ahead, thin lines of light bending slightly as the ship traveled faster than normal space allowed. He had coordinated missions before, but this one felt different. This time, the unknown was not far away. It was close to home. Behind him, the bridge crew worked in silence. They were human, but the ship also carried observers from 3 other species. The council had insisted. Transparency, they called it. Trust, Elias thought. A soft tone sounded. "We are 1 hour from the Helios drift boundary," the navigation officer said. Elias nodded. "Slow the ship. I want full sensor focus. Yes, envoy." As the ship adjusted course, Elias turned slightly and looked at the observers seated behind a clear divider. One was a Thalrex science officer, massive even when seated, its armored plates reflecting faint light. Another was a Lumiere delegate, floating quietly, its glow dim but steady. The third was from the insect-like species whose name humans still struggled to pronounce. It watched everything without blinking. None of them spoke. That silence felt heavier than words. Elias remembered the council's reaction when the task group was announced. Some had shown relief. Others had shown fear. A few had shown what looked like disappointment, as if they expected humans to fail. The ship crossed an invisible line. "Entering Helios drift," the pilot said. Immediately, the stars ahead changed. Light bent more strongly here, like space itself was tired. Sensors filled the air with quiet alerts, not alarms, but constant signals. Elias stepped closer to the main display. The star appeared. It was larger than expected, not in size, but in presence. Its light was warm, not harsh. It pulsed slowly, like a breathing thing. Energy waves spread outward in perfect rhythm. The Thalrex observer spoke.
"That is not natural." "No," Elias agreed. "It isn't." The science officer on duty adjusted readings.
Energy flow remained stable, no aggressive output. Yet, the insect observer clicked softly. Elias did not correct it. The word "yet" mattered. As the ship moved closer, patterns became clearer. The star's fluctuations were not random. They were measured, controlled, almost gentle. The Lumiere floated slightly higher. "It feels intentional," it said, "but not hostile." Elias felt the same. Still, feelings were not evidence.
"Open long-range communication scan," Elias ordered.
All known bands. The ship listened. Minutes passed.
Nothing. No signal. No message. No reply. The insect observer shifted. If it is artificial, why remain silent? "Maybe it is listening," Elias said. That thought stayed with him. Suddenly, the main display changed. A new pattern appeared. Thin lines of light formed shapes near the star, almost like lines being drawn slowly by an unseen hand. The crew froze. "Is that a response?" someone whispered. Elias leaned forward.
Record everything. The lines did not form letters. They formed something older than language.
They formed mathematical relationships, ratios, constants, balance equations. The science officer's voice trembled slightly. These are universal structures. Anyone with advanced knowledge would recognize them.
It is showing intelligence. Yes, Elias said quietly, and restraint. The patterns changed again.
This time they simplified, breaking down into smaller elements, as if teaching rather than displaying. The Lumiere's glow brightened. It is communicating carefully, slowly. The insect observer clicked rapidly. Or testing. That possibility could not be ignored. Elias made a decision. Respond, he said. Several heads turned toward him. The science officer hesitated. With what, envoy? Elias thought for only a moment. With the same language. The ship's systems projected a simple mathematical sequence back toward the star. Nothing complex, nothing aggressive. Just acknowledgement. The response came almost immediately. The star's pulse adjusted. Not faster, not stronger, just aligned. A strange stillness filled the bridge. The ship was no longer just observing. It was participating. Hours passed as both sides exchanged patterns. Each sequence built on the last, growing slightly more complex, but never overwhelming. Elias noticed something important. The star never pushed. It waited, like a careful teacher. Finally, the science officer leaned back slowly. Envoy. I. This intelligence is limiting itself. Deliberately.
Limiting itself? Elias asked.
Yes, its energy capacity is far greater than what it is using.
It is holding back.
The Thalrex made a low sound.
Why would something so powerful do that? Elias answered without thinking. To avoid harm. The words surprised even him.
The Lumiere turned toward him. That is a human assumption. Elias met its light.
Yes, because it is one we live with every day.
The exchange continued until the ship's systems began to strain. Not from damage, but from complexity. The star's final pattern was different. It was incomplete. A question. The AI translated possibilities. Probability trees formed, meaning clustered.
It is asking, the AI said, about boundaries.
Elias felt a chill.
Boundaries of what?
Influence, expansion, responsibility. The observers were silent. Elias understood now why the council had been uneasy. This was not a weapon, not a trap. It was something new, something deciding whether humanity was worth trusting.
Elias stepped closer to the interface. Respond, he said.
This time, he did not choose equations. He chose history. The ship transmitted data. Not weapons, not technology, stories. Records of human mistakes, environmental damage, wars, regret, recovery, laws created after failure, agreements written in loss. The Thalrex observer reacted sharply. You are showing weakness. Elias shook his head. I am showing truth. The data stream continued. It showed restraint, learned the hard way. Power limited by choice, not lack. Progress slowed to protect life. The star did not respond immediately. The silence stretched. Minutes passed. Then the pulse changed. Not stronger. Softer. The patterns that followed were unlike anything before. Not math. Not symbols. Simulations appeared. Visions of stars stabilized instead of consumed. Energy guided instead of released. Systems protected by patience, not force. The Lumiere spoke with awe. It is a guardian structure. The insect observer was very still.
An ancient one,
The AI confirmed. Age estimation exceeds all known civilizations. Elias felt small
and strangely proud. The final exchange came gently. A projection of the Helios drift stabilized. The dangerous probability curves flattened. The star was no longer a threat. It never had been. It had been a test. As the ship turned back toward known space, Elias stood once more at the viewing window. Behind them, the star continued its calm pulse, balanced and quiet. The Thalrex finally spoke again.
The Council will want control, Elias nodded. They will ask, and if it refuses? Elias looked at the stars ahead.
Then humanity will explain, he said, why some things should not be owned. For the first time since leaving Earth, Elias felt certain of something. Humanity's greatest strength was not its technology. It was its choice to stop. And the galaxy had noticed. The return journey felt longer than the trip out. Space itself seemed quieter, as if the Helios drift had changed the way everyone listened. The Aster Way moved steadily, its systems calm, its crew thoughtful. No one spoke much. There was nothing left to prove out here. Elias Morgan spent most of the time reviewing recordings, not for errors, not for hidden threats, but for meaning. The patterns exchanged with the ancient star repeated in his mind. Balance, delay, choice. These were not the values of a machine alone. They were the values of something that had watched civilizations rise and fall. The observers remained on board until the ship reached council space. Protocol demanded it. Trust was still fragile. When the station came into view, Elias felt a quiet tension return. The Galen exchange station looked the same as ever, vast and calm. But he knew what waited inside. Questions, pressure, fear dressed as logic. The docking clamps locked into place. As soon as the air seals opened, council aides were already waiting. Word had spread faster than the ship. Elias walked with the observers through the wide corridors. Beings paused to watch them pass, not because of the Thalrex's size or the Lumiere's glow, but because of Elias. Humans were being noticed now. Inside the council chamber, the hollow projection was already active. The Helios drift star hovered in the center, steady and quiet. Delegates filled the seats quickly. Voices rose and fell before the session even began. When the chamber sealed, silence followed. "The Joint Task Group has returned," the council voice announced. "Envoy Elias Morgan, present your findings." Elias stood. He did not rush. He spoke clearly, slowly, and without drama. He described the star's controlled behavior, the careful communication, the restraint. He explained the exchange of knowledge, the test of boundaries, the stabilization of the region. He did not exaggerate. He did not hide uncertainty. When he finished, the chamber was quiet again. Then questions came. The Thalrex delegate spoke first. "Can it be directed?" "No," Elias answered. "It will not accept control." The insect delegate clicked sharply. "Can it be weaponized?" "No," Elias said again. And attempting to do so would destabilize it. Another voice rose. "Can humans access its knowledge?" Elias paused. "Only what it chooses to share." Murmurs spread. Some delegates were dissatisfied. Power unclaimed always made some uncomfortable. The Lumiere spoke softly. "What does it want in return?" Elias met the light. "Space, respect, and time." "Time for what?" someone demanded. "For civilizations to learn restraint," Elias said. That answer did not please everyone. A tall delegate from an older empire leaned forward.
That is not how the galaxy works. Elias did not argue. It is how survival works. The debate continued for hours.
Proposals formed. Restrictions were suggested. Observation zones. Monitoring arrays. Influence frameworks. Elias listened.
When it was his turn again, he said only one thing. Humanity will not lead an effort to control it. That caused an uproar. The Thalrex stood partially, armor shifting. You would deny the council access? Elias remained calm.
We deny no one knowledge. We deny ownership.
Why? Another delegate demanded. Elias answered honestly. Because it trusted us first? The chamber quieted slightly. Trust was a rare word in council discussions. The final decision was delayed. Committees were formed, studies approved. No one wanted to be the one who pushed too hard, too fast. As the session ended, Elias felt exhausted, but steady. He had not won anything, but he had prevented something worse. Later, alone in his quarters, Elias stared out at the stars again. His assistant AI spoke softly.
You are being discussed extensively, it said.
Elias sighed. That was always going to happen. Sentiment analysis shows a shift, the AI continued. Humanity is now perceived as cautious. Elias smiled faintly.
I'll take that.
The smile faded as another alert appeared. New data detected, the AI said. From the Helios drift? Elias straightened. Already? A projection formed. The star's pulse was unchanged, but something else had appeared nearby. Structure, not solid, not energy alone, a framework of balance fields, slowly assembling.
His building, Elias whispered. Purpose unclear, the AI said.
But construction avoids known trade routes and habitats, Elias understood. It's making room. For what? The AI asked.
For others, Elias said. The council was notified immediately.
This time, the response was different. Less panic, more curiosity. Over the next weeks, more ships arrived near the Helios drift, not too close. No one dared cross the invisible line the star had set. They observed. What they saw changed everything. The structure was not a weapon or a station. It was a stabilizer. It absorbed excess stellar energy and redirected it safely. Systems near it became calmer, safer, predictable. Civilizations began to reroute ships nearby. Trade lanes adjusted naturally. The galaxy adapted. The ancient star remained silent, but its actions spoke clearly. It was preparing the region for coexistence. Elias was invited to observe remotely as new patterns formed. He watched as other species attempted communication. Some tried to impress. Some tried to demand. Most failed. Only when they slowed down did the star respond. Only when they limited themselves. Reports came in. Frustration from expansion-focused empires. Relief from smaller worlds. Debate filled every channel. Humans, surprisingly, stayed quiet. Earth released a single statement. We are guests in a shared space. Guests do not rearrange the house. The statement spread faster than any technology humans had ever launched. Elias read messages from Earth leaders, from scientists, from ordinary people. Pride mixed with fear, hope mixed with responsibility. One message stood out. From a child in a frontier colony. Did we pass the test? Elias stared at the words for a long time. Weeks later, the star sent one final communication. Not to the council, not to the empires, to Elias. It was simple, a simulation of a human hand, open, empty, then a field of stars, stable and calm. The AI translated probabilities. It acknowledges humanity's choice, it said, and mirrors it. Elias closed his eyes briefly. The galaxy would not be the same after this. Power would still exist. Conflict would still happen. But something had shifted. Humanity had shown that restraint was not weakness. It was maturity. As months passed, the Helios drift became a boundary not of fear, but of understanding. A reminder that greater power did not always mean greater control. And whenever council debates grew too heated, someone would reference the drift. Not as a threat, as a lesson. Elias remained an envoy. He did not become a hero or a legend. But when new species joined the exchange, older delegates would quietly point toward the human seat and say, they were trusted first. And that, Elias knew, was enough. The months after the Helios drift changed the rhythm of the galaxy. Travel routes adjusted. Trade slowed in some places and grew in others. Meetings lasted longer. Words were chosen more carefully. No one said it openly, but everyone felt it. Something older and wiser had stepped into the conversation, and it did not raise its voice. Elias Morgan remained busy. His role as coordinator quietly became something else. He was no longer just a messenger between worlds. He was a reference point. When debates stalled, someone would ask, what did the human envoy observe? And the room would listen. That attention made Elias uneasy. Humans were not used to being examples. They were used to being questioned. One cycle after the drift stabilized, the council called an emergency session. Not because of danger, but because of pressure. A large alliance of expansion-driven civilizations submitted a formal proposal. They wanted structured access to the drift's stabilizing effects. Permanent installations. Energy-sharing agreements. Influence corridors. In simple words, they wanted guarantees. Elias read the proposal twice before the meeting. He already knew how the ancient star would respond. Inside the council chamber, the atmosphere was tense, but controlled. No shouting, no threats, just firm positions. The Alliance representative spoke with confidence. We are not asking to control the entity. We ask to cooperate. Structured cooperation requires structure. Elias waited. Another delegate added, unregulated influence leads to imbalance. The drift affects trade, security, and growth. The council must act. The Thalrex nodded slightly. Even they looked uncertain. When Elias was recognized, he stood slowly. The drift already has structure, he said.
It is simply not ours,
A murmur followed. The entity there responds to restraint, Elias continued. It does not respond to claims, borders, or frameworks designed for ownership. The Alliance representative frowned. Then, what do you suggest? Passive acceptance? Elias shook his head. Active respect. That phrase hung in the air. The debate went on. For hours. Legal definitions were offered. Historical examples cited. Old fears surfaced. Younger species worried about being left behind. Elias listened more than he spoke. At the end, no agreement was reached. Again. But something subtle had changed. No one accused humanity.
No one demanded human compliance. They argued as equals now.
After the session, Elias returned to his quarters, feeling the familiar weight of uncertainty. He sat by the viewport, watching traffic move like slow thoughts across the stars. His AI broke the silence. You are experiencing elevated cognitive fatigue, Elias smiled faintly. That's one way to say it. Would you like rest? In a moment, Elias replied. Tell me something. What are the chances this ends well? The AI paused longer than usual. Define well. Elias considered. No one tries to force the drift. No one gets hurt. The balance holds. Probability low, the AI said honestly.
But increasing? Elias nodded. That's all we can ask. Days later, something unexpected happened.
A small, newly spacefaring species requested human mediation. They were not powerful. Their ships were slow, their voices unsure. They lived near the outer effects of the drift and feared being pushed aside by larger empires. Elias agreed to meet them. The meeting was informal, held in a simple room without council symbols. The species representative was small, almost fragile, with wide, reflective eyes.
"We don't want the drift," the representative said carefully. "We just don't want to lose our place."
Elias listened. "You think restraint protects the weak," the representative continued. "But strong ones call restraint a luxury."
"They often do. Why do humans believe in it?" the representative asked.
Elias thought for a long time before answering. "Because we learned," he said, "that growth without pause becomes collapse, and because someone once gave us time when we did not deserve it." The representative studied him.
"Will you speak for us?"
Elias did not hesitate. Yes. That promise carried weight, not because Elias had power, but because the galaxy now believed he would use it carefully. As more smaller civilizations reached out, a pattern formed. Humans became a quiet bridge. Not leaders, not rulers, translators of caution. The drift noticed. One cycle later, a new communication arrived. Not dramatic, not urgent. An invitation. The ancient star adjusted its fields, opening a narrow observation window. Not for ships, for data. A shared frame where understanding could deepen without closeness. The council debated whether to allow it. Elias was asked directly for his opinion. "If we refuse," he said, "we show fear. If we rush, we show hunger. If we accept carefully, we show maturity."
They accepted. What followed changed science forever.
The shared frame revealed methods of balance humans had only guessed at, energy redirection without loss, long-term system stability, growth measured in centuries, not cycles. But the most important discovery was not technical. It was ethical. Every solution the ancient intelligence used included a limit, a self-imposed stop, a point where it chose not to act, even when it could. That concept spread through the galaxy faster than any technology. Some resisted it, some mocked it, but some embraced it. New treaties formed that included delay clauses, expansion plans added recovery cycles, weapons development slowed in favor of stabilization research. Not everywhere, not perfectly, but enough. Elias watched these changes from the edges. He never stood at the center of them. That was intentional. One evening, long after the drift had become part of normal maps, Elias received a private message from Earth. They asked him to return, not as a hero, as a teacher. Elias stood by the viewport one last time before departure. The stars looked the same as always, but he saw them differently now. Not as empty space to be filled, but as relationships waiting to be understood. The AI spoke softly. "Do you regret not claiming more influence?" Elias smiled. "No." "Why?" "Because influence that must be claimed was never meant to be trusted." As his ship prepared to leave the station, Elias felt something gentle brush the sensors. A familiar pattern. The drift. No message. No request. Just acknowledgement. The galaxy was still imperfect. Still loud. Still ambitious. But now, somewhere between the stars, there was a quiet reminder. That power could wait. And that sometimes the species that survived were not the strongest or the fastest, but the ones who knew when to stop. The journey back to Earth was quiet, not empty, but full in a way Elias Morgan had not felt before. The ship moved smoothly through space, and the stars outside no longer felt distant or cold. They felt familiar, like old questions that no longer demanded urgent answers. Elias spent much of the trip thinking, not about the council or the drift, but about time. The ancient intelligence had waited longer than human history itself. It had watched empires rise, expand, and vanish. And yet, it had chosen to wait again, to test again when humanity appeared. That choice stayed with him. When the ship entered Earth's system, Elias felt something he had not expected. Relief. Not because the mission was over, but because he was coming home changed, and Earth had changed too. Orbit traffic was heavier than before. New stations floated near the planet, carefully spaced. None of them were rushed or oversized. They reflected lessons learned, not ambition alone. As Elias looked down at the blue curve of Earth, he noticed something simple. The planet looked calm. At the Earth Council complex, Elias was welcomed without ceremony. No banners, no loud speeches, just people waiting to listen. The room was smaller than the Galactic Council chamber. Wooden surfaces, natural light, living plants. It grounded him instantly. He spoke for hours. He explained the drift, the ancient intelligence, the test, and humanity's response. He spoke about restraint not as sacrifice, but as direction, about choosing paths that did not close other paths. No one interrupted him. When he finished, silence followed. Not uncomfortable silence, thoughtful silence. Finally, an older council member spoke. Did we do the right thing? Elias answered honestly.
We did the best thing we knew how to do. Another asked, what happens next? Elias smiled slightly. Now we live with the example we set. In the weeks that followed, Elias took on his new role.
He taught, not from authority, but from experience. Scientists asked about the shared frame. Diplomats asked about council dynamics. Students asked simple questions that were often the hardest. Why didn't you take more? One asked. Elias answered the same way each time. Because not everything that can be taken should be. The drift remained stable. Reports came in regularly. No signs of withdrawal. No escalation. Just quiet presence. Then, one day, something unexpected happened again. Not in space. On Earth, a global initiative formed not from governments, but from communities. It focused on long-term thinking. Projects designed to last beyond lifetimes. Environmental recovery plans measured in centuries. They called it the pause. It was not mandatory. That was the key. Participation spread slowly at first, then faster. People found comfort in planning for futures they would never see. It changed how success was measured. Elias watched this from a distance, humbled. Humanity had not just impressed the galaxy, it had surprised itself. Years passed. Elias grew older. His hair grayed. His steps slowed, but his mind remained sharp, shaped by patience rather than urgency. He returned to space only once more. The invitation did not come from the council. It came from the drift. This time, the message was clearer. Not symbols, not equations. A shared moment. Elias traveled alone, by choice. The ship stopped at the boundary the ancient intelligence had set long ago. He did not cross it. He did not need to. The star pulsed gently, as it always had. The stabilizing structure glowed softly, complete now, woven into space itself. The shared frame opened. Elias did not receive knowledge. He received memory. He saw countless civilizations. Some rushed. Some paused. Some learned. Too late. Some learned just in time. Then he saw something new. A future path. Not a prediction. A possibility. Humanity, among others. Not dominant. Not erased. Present. Trusted. Patient. The message ended simply. Acknowledgement. Elias felt tears form. Unashamed. He returned to Earth, knowing that his role was finished. Not because it had failed, but because it was no longer needed. In his final years, Elias lived quietly. He wrote, but not memoirs. He wrote questions. questions for future generations to answer in their own way. One of them became famous. What will you choose not to do today so someone else can choose tomorrow? Long after Elias Morgan passed away, the galaxy continued to change. Conflicts still happened, mistakes still occurred, but the drift remained. A quiet constant. And whenever a civilization faced a choice between speed and care, between control and trust, someone would mention the humans. Not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as the species that showed the galaxy it was possible to stop, to think, and still move forward. The ancient intelligence remained silent, as it always had. It did not need to speak again. Humanity had answered well enough. The stars continued to shine, steady and patient, and somewhere between them, balance endured.